The camp of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is considering a couple of historical sites as possible venues for his inauguration. Incoming Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo is planning to digitize the government's Ayuda or cash aid program. Incoming Finance Chief Ben Diokno discusses his plans to improve the country's tax system. The Foreign Affairs Department summons a senior official of the Chinese embassy after harassment by the Chinese Coast Guard of Filipinos in the West Philippine Sea. And several teams delivered straight-set wins in yesterday's action in UAAP Season 84 Women's Volleyball. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. Incoming DSWD Chief Erwin Tulfo wants to make Ayuda distribution digital, while other cabinet appointees also bear their agenda as they near the start of their service. Marlene Alcaide with a report.
Clean and digitize the list of Ayuda beneficiaries. That's the first order of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to incoming Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo. He also wants those badly hit by the pandemic to be well provided for. But Tulfo's appointment has been met with criticism. To this, Tulfo says give him up to 1 year to prove his worth.
Bigyan naman ho ako ng 6 months to 1 year. Pag hindi po ako nakadeliver, ako na mismo ang bababa sa pwesto.
Tulfo is among the 5 nominees who have recently accepted the offer to be in Marcos Jr.'s cabinet. Liloan Mayor Cristina Garcia Frasco has taken on the task to become the next tourism chief. In a statement, Frasco said that she supports Marcos Jr.'s vision to revitalize tourism for the country's post-pandemic economic growth. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Assistant Governor Amina Pangandaman has likewise accepted the offer to be the next budget secretary. She said that it is an honor to serve the country. Pangandaman also told News 5 that Marcos Jr. is expected to meet his entire economic team soon. Incoming DICT Chief IT Law Expert Ivan John Enrile Uy said he will focus on digital infrastructure as promised by the President-elect. Some posts, on the other hand, remain vacant, just like the Defense Department. But outgoing Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello floated the name of retired General Hermogenes Esperon for the post.
Si Secretary Jun Esperon, nababalita ko magiging Secretary of National Defense. Balita lang naman eh.
Aside from completing his cabinet, Marcos Jr.'s camp is also preparing for his inauguration on June 30. His sister, Senator Amy Marcos, says that they have yet to pick a venue. Options include the Carino Grandstand and the Fort Santiago. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Incoming Finance Secretary Ben Diokno says his priority is to improve the current tax system. Speaking to the big story, Diokno explained that the current tax system is already, quote, more improved compared to the one left by late President Noynoy Aquino. That's why he believes that the Department of Finance should focus on implementing this improved tax system. Although the outgoing Bangko Sentral chief emphasized the need to tax digital transactions.
Tama lang yun kasi ang pinaka-importanting prinsipyo sa pagbubuwis ay yung fairness. Kasi kung bumili ka sa ordinary store ay natatax, the same commodity na bibilin mo online should also be taxed accordingly. Kung at the moment nakakalusot sila sa taxation dahil na bagong sistema, I think we should try to cover them.
Cabinet members continue to report their achievements on Day 2 of the Duterte Legacy Summit. Maricel Halili gives us a recap of what went on during yesterday's event.
With his term set to end in less than a month, President Rodrigo Duterte hosted a despedida party for his cabinet members, thanking them for their 6 years of service.
You mentioned yung desire niya to thank also the spouses for being not selfish na pinabigay yung oras para pagsilbi sa ating gobyerno.
Cabinet officials, meanwhile, continue to give their accomplishment report in day 2 of the Duterte Legacy Summit. Aside from the COVID response, the Health Department emphasized the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law and the maximum retail price regulations for medicines. The salaries of some medical practitioners, however, remains to be an issue. Even Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello expressed his disappointment. His advice to nurses: assert their rights.
You demand for your rightful claim as workers. If they do not give you your minimum wage as provided under the law, go on strike. Tingnan mo kung maka-operate dyan ang mga private hospitals. Tingnan mo kung maka-operate ang Medical City, ang Makati Med, ang St. Luke Hospital, kung wala ang mga healthcare workers.
As for the Education, Commission on Higher Education Chair Prospero de Vera said there was a 300% increase in the number of local universities included in the list of top universities worldwide. There was also an increase in the number of students going to college.
For every 100 students who enter grade 1, historically, only 50 finish senior high. And out of the 50, about 25 try to go to higher ed.
The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, meanwhile, reported that a total of 88.83 billion pesos worth of illegal drugs were seized. This was one of the key promises of Duterte during his campaign in 2016. While there is no clear schedule yet on the meeting between President Duterte and President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea said that he has already met with the Marcos camp to talk about their plans for the inauguration on June 30. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
We'll be back with more stories after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Experts are calling on the incoming Marcos Jr. administration to assert the country's sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea. This following the latest round of incursions by the Chinese Coast Guard. Marian Enriquez with the details.
Since March, the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative has recorded a total of 3 incidents of intrusion and harassment by Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea's exclusive economic zone. First was on March 23 when Chinese Coast Guard shadowed research vessel Legend, which had Filipino and Taiwanese scientists on board. That went on until April 9. They also followed seismic ships contracted by the Philippines. A separate incident happened on April 21 when BFAR and PCG's vessels heading to Ayungin Shoal were pursued by Chinese Coast Guard vessels. The Foreign Affairs Department has summoned a senior official of the Chinese embassy to protest the harassment.
I think the message is clear that China will not allow the Philippines to conduct its own petroleum exploration in its exclusive economic zone and continental shelf area. This will also discourage investors in the petroleum industry in the Philippines.
The DFA adds that some of these incidents violate innocent passage in the maritime jurisdiction. With the incoming new administration, experts stress the importance of having a foreign policy that will assert Philippine sovereign rights over China's intrusion in the West Philippine Sea. Meanwhile, for De La Salle University International Studies Professor Renato De Castro, it is also important to strengthen ties with allies and to assert the arbitral ruling.
We could not simply do away with our alliance. Then, of course, maintaining our security partnerships, especially with Japan, Australia, and South Korea. Then, of course, the importance of acknowledging the arbitral ruling.
Meanwhile, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S. Jose Manuel Romualdez notes the importance of a balanced approach.
We definitely would like to have very good relations with our neighbor China, at the same time continuing our relationship with the United States.
The DFA has also filed a diplomatic protest against China's unilateral imposition of a 3.5 fishing moratorium in the South China Sea that will last until August 16. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Four UAAP teams cruised to quick straight-set wins in yesterday's women's volleyball matches. Ateneo snapped UST's 4-game winning streak in straight sets, with Faith Nesperos bouncing back from an off game to drop 18 points with 7 excellent receptions. Fanny Gandler and Joanne Narit also showed up big time for the Blue Eagles, combining for 23 points in the game. Next up, Adamson made easy work of the FEU Lady Tamaraos, taking the win at 25-17, 25-17, and 25-16. Adamson setter Louis Romero proved fatal to FEU as she dished out 17 excellent sets on top of 3 points of her own. Meanwhile, DLSU crawled out of a 6-point hole in the third set to defeat the UP Lady Maroons to reclaim the solo second spot in the tournament. Finally, NU barged into the Final Four by handling the still winless UE a 3-set beatdown. 25-14, 25-17, and 25-15. NU, meanwhile, remains undefeated in 10 games. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later at 9 a.m. as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.